Hey, yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome to podcast 109 of the show with me, Michael Labs. I hope everyone's having a beautiful, beautiful week. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the middle of the week. Not happy hump day because that shit's overrated as hell. I hope you guys enjoyed the last podcast. I know I talked a lot about autism, which is something I rarely ever talk about, but I thought it was just a good TV show, and I thought it would bring a lot of positive awareness to autism. So I went ahead and talked about it. This podcast is going to start off a little dark, I believe. So let's just dive right into it. Before we get into the episode, I just want to give a thank you once again to everybody who's been showing the podcast love, liking it, leaving it ratings on pretty much all the episodes. Let me get this mic straight. Leaving it ratings on all the episodes, checking it out on YouTube, subscribing, liking, commenting on all of the podcasts. I'm sweating right here. Those actions help the podcast out the most. The thing that helps it out the most, though, is verbally telling people about it. There's a stronger connection with that than there is, I think, with any numbers that you put up, whether it be a rating or a review or liking it or commenting on it. The best marketing out there still to this day is the ability, or is telling people about it, a friend or a family member, about whatever it is that you enjoy. That's the best way to get to the next consumer. So if everybody's listening right now or watching, if you could, within the next 24 hours, just tell 2 people about the podcast, the Michael Lab Show, get them to check it out, like everything, review everything, just show love, because it helps the podcast a lot. I love doing it, and I want to continue to invest as much as I possibly can into this project. It takes up a lot of time. I love doing it. I put in as much work as I possibly can into it, and I love the feedback I get on it. People watch it. They come up to me. They tell me what they think about it, what episode they like the most. I look at it as there's 108 pieces of me. And 108 pieces stacked together is me. And I think the more people watch of each episode, the more they get to understand me as a person. And I think a lot of times I hit topics or subjects that opens the eyes up to each person, and it allows them to look inside themselves and start figuring out things for themselves about who they are. And that translates to just positive impact for that person outside of or in their world. So I want to continue to reach people. The only way you can do that is to continue to grow the podcast. This month has been beautiful. It's grown again. The numbers have gone up again. And that's only because of the support I receive from my peers, my family, and especially people outside of my immediate circle. It's really fascinating. I've started a lot of things. Not too many things, but I've started a clothing company. I've started a few YouTube channels. It's very fascinating how things around you and people near you kind of separate, and you find your own groove, your own group of people. If I look at who listens to my stuff the most, and by the way, I'm not complaining here, I'm just stating the obvious. If I look at the people who enjoy my content the most, it's people that I don't know. It's places that I've never been. I mean, if I ever told you a year ago, I would have my podcast heard in Venezuela, in the Philippines, in Malaysia, in Indonesia, in the Dominican Republic, in Latvia, Scotland, Ireland. I'm forgetting the Congo, Nigeria, South Africa, Canada, even cities here, San Francisco. If I ever told you that this podcast would have been worldwide, I wouldn't have believed myself. I would have wanted to, but at the end of the day, I don't think I would have had the ability to even rationalize that my podcast, which is an English podcast, is heard across the world into countries that that English is not their native tongue, but it's reached people there who know English. And I think on YouTube, you can watch it. You can watch translations. I think maybe not. Maybe YouTube's in the process of doing that, but it's just a beautiful thing. And honestly, at the end of the day, I want this podcast to show everybody that it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what your career path is. It doesn't matter what you are as a person, who you are as a person, or the life that you've experienced. But if you ever find yourself with a passion, if you ever find yourself thinking about something else or even doing something else that isn't what you're actually doing, you should probably spend more time on that thought. You know, before I started this podcast, I was itching. It was in me I was like, fuck, I want to start a podcast. And every day I woke up, another day would go by where I wasn't producing content. And it did bother me. You know, I was sitting in class like, shit, I want a podcast, because I would look around and nobody had a podcast. And I was like, I'm watching podcasts every day. And I say watch because that's how I consume my podcast. I watch. That's why I'm so big on YouTube, because I know if I watch it, there's got to be a million other people like me. Not because I'm selfish, but because it's just a probability game. And I watch a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I enjoy a lot of podcasts. They make me happy. I learn a lot. They're a funnel for a lot of ideas that I come up with, and they allow me to think about a lot of things. And a lot of the books most of the books I've read, if not all of them, have come from an idea stemmed off of a podcast that I've heard. And they've also made me a better person. I can listen to other opposing views a lot easier because of podcasts, because I'm constantly listening to different things all the time. Especially when a time like this is upon you, when there's just so much, there seems like there's another bombshell going off in society. If you can learn about the history of humans, of the United States, of people, of the world, and you can really develop just a factual viewpoint of so many different stances, it makes everything seem so much easier. You know, I've talked to a lot of people from every walk of Earth about what's going on right now in this world, just the tension. You can feel the tension between cultures. You can feel the panic with the coronavirus. You can feel the anger towards President Trump. You can feel, which I think is the strongest feeling, the hopelessness and the nakedness of a lot of people that currently live in this country that feel like they don't have a voice. I've communicated a lot with a lot of different people, and the thing that strikes me the most is every time you converse with anybody, the way that they view the subject matter is not nearly as intense as the way that the news and the way that the media is portraying it. And I think what happens, and I think this happens all the time, what happens with the news stories, what happens with events, social gatherings, political candidates, politics in general, the news and everything, there's a huge advantage for media to produce panic. There's a huge benefit when CNN or Fox throws up words that are triggering to people, and it will physically, at a physiological level, make your blood pressure spike, and then will make you angry. There's a huge advantage to that. There's a huge advantage for media to piss you off, to keep you in the loop, keep you in the cycle, because it keeps your eyes pinned onto whatever it is, because it's heavily interesting and it's pushing all your dopamine receptors. So it keeps you entangled in the chaos. So it's a huge advantage for them. It's a huge disadvantage for people. And this is the thing, this is the dichotomy I think that is going on right now. More than ever, the biggest issue I believe right now is that the people in power are far the distant. Okay, so the people in power versus citizens, the communication is gapped longer, I think, more than it's ever been. I really do believe that. I think people in power are using movements, and it's disgusting, but I think they're using movements to better their portfolio of a politician, of a person. And as much as us citizens don't want to believe that that's true, when weeks go by and months go by and there seems to be no change, you just build up a more resentment towards politicians, towards people who wield that power. And it's a really strange world right now. But like what I was saying at the beginning, the best way to build up armor against that, against the, I almost said it, but against news that is strongly correlated with an agenda, is to read, is to learn from objective, factual information. Everything is so emotionally driven nowadays. Intention is thrown out the window. You see celebrities all the time. You see people, human beings, making mistakes about something that's happened in the past. And I'm not saying that everything that's been called out is okay. Some of the things like Chris D'Elia, that wasn't okay. But there's some other things, I can't think of an example right now, so call me a hypocrite if you like, or call me not knowledgeable if you like. But some things I think are being brought to the surface that don't need to be brought to the surface. And when you bring certain things that actually aren't detrimental to anybody to the surface, and you do it to build up your credibility as a virtue signaler and as somebody who can, your status becomes higher in a group if you can make someone else's life miserable. If you call someone out for being transphobic when they said transgender to somebody who wasn't transgender, or they called someone who just went through the process of changing the sexual orientation and they slip up on accident and they say he instead of she, or she instead of he, or them instead of her and he, and that person, if they do it again and again, then it makes sense. Makes sense that you shouldn't do that. I think it's wrong. For me, if you want to be called something, I will call you that, whatever it is that you want to be called. But at the same time, you have to keep your gun in the holster. You can't just start firing at people if mistakes are made. If the intention is not to harm somebody, then you got to put the guns back in your pocket. You can't just shoot everybody, because what happens is everyone gets shot and everyone's dead. Ideas die with people. I think it's we're living in a world right now where there's landmines set everywhere. And if you have any type of attention on you, you will strike a landmine eventually. And the hardest part is because of social media and because of where social media is now. And for social media has been around for about a decade. I started tweeting in like 2008. And I'm sure I have tweets right now that are probably not they're probably a bit cringeworthy. I mean, I'm sure I do. And that's the issue with the world that we live in right now, is that since social media has been around for a long time, you can never run away from your past. Your past is always there. And people don't want you to grow. They don't want you to grow into a better person. They want to attack you. Even if the person you are today is not that person from 10 years ago. The person I am 23 years old today is not the 13-year-old middle school. Just not that person. I'm a different person. I've grown. I like to believe. I like to believe I have healthier and more noble characteristics about me. I want to believe I'm a less ignorant person. I am more understanding of different cultures. I'm more grown on a lot of aspects of my life. But when what we're going through right now is a refusal to allow anybody to make mistakes, and it's dangerous because if we really wanted to try, I could find a mistake about everybody I know. I mean, every single person I know have made a mistake that they could get in trouble for. And if that's the case, and I believe that's the case, and I almost believe that that's factually true, that everyone has fucked up, everybody's in trouble. Instead of just accepting that we're humans and we're flawed by nature. And we will always be flawed and we will always make mistakes. But that's what makes this thing called life so fun, is that we do make mistakes. Because when we make a mistake and we do well and we accomplish our goals after we fucked up, there's a sense of accomplishment. There's a self-esteem boost. There's a sense of, there's a community sense. Wow, that person did a good job. We're proud of that person. I'm proud of myself. And that's been completely stripped away because you're not allowed to be human anymore. If you have a conversation with somebody and maybe you push a little bit too far in a subject, instead of, the reasonable thing of taking a step back and, that person's just really trying to figure out an answer and trying to throw out all possibilities, well, that person's shut down. And there can never be the only way you can understand anybody is you have to have uncomfortable conversations. You just have to. That's just the truth. And I think it's been forgotten about. But I digress. I don't even know. That wasn't the plan. I don't know what that was. That wasn't the plan of when I got on this podcast. To talk about, I don't know, what was that? Culture, society? I'm not too sure. But I wanted, so like I said at the beginning, there's a few things I want to cover real quick. So lately, I've actually, for the past 2 nights, I haven't really been doing it. I don't know what this means. I guess I can look it up as I'm explaining it to you. But the last week or so has been a stressful week, to say the least. It's been a stressful I don't know what any of this means. It's been a moderately stressful past week for me and the people around me, and for a number of reasons. But one of the biggest reasons was, I was explaining this to one of my friends yesterday. One of the most stressful things in life so far, and I'm still learning this lesson. I'm young. I'm only 23, and I haven't experienced a lot of loss in my life. I haven't experienced a lot of moments where I've always been in control pretty much of all the situations I've been in, up to an extent. Like I've been able to call the shots. I've been able to physically take care of somebody or something to hopefully get them through the situation they're going through. I've always had that ability. And I'm fully aware of how lucky I am to say that. I also recognize that it won't always be that way, right? I mean, life is tragedy, I mean, life itself is a tragedy waiting to happen, because you will pass away. It's the one thing that you cannot run away from. It's an old cheesy quote, but I don't know verbatim, but you can't outrun death. It will catch up to you. So accepting that sometimes things are out of your control is a very important lesson. It's a lesson that at the base level, I think I understand, but at a deeper meaning, I don't think I understand, because I just haven't experienced it. So within the past week and a half, like I said, we took our dog on a hike. We came back, blah, blah, blah. And there was a moment there where a solid 2 to 3 days, and I'm thinking this is what the correlation is, where I honestly convinced myself that she wasn't going to be alive. I thought she was going to pass away. And the reason why I thought that is because it was a personality shift, and she just wasn't the same dog. And it sounds stupid. It sounds really dumb, but it doesn't sound dumb. This is like the first thing. This is my first dog I've ever had that's like my own, and Taylor's. And you put in time, just like in a relationship. What hurts the most about the end of a relationship is because you put in time. We put in time into this dog. We gave her everything we possibly could. Finances, emotions, caring for her, and we've rescued her from a pound. So I think there's even more of a connection there. And still, she was struggling big time. There was a point where we tried to pick her up, and she just fell right back down. And she's young. She's 3 years old. She was just pooping out blood, literally just squirting out blood. And I apologize for that graphic vision in your head. And on top of that, she was extremely bloated. She wasn't eating anymore. And there was a personality shift. And that's what made me go, shit, she's dead. Because when I'm really sick, you can only tell I'm really sick when my personality changes. Otherwise, physically, I'm usually okay. But once the personality switches a little bit, that's when I start worrying. And that happened, and I was worried. And we spent hours and hours and hours and hours, probably added up to about a day worth of time at an emergency vet. We spent, a lot of money, which was fine. I didn't care because I just wanted her to be happy and healthy. And it's something that I love to death. And I felt a connection to her where I was like, fuck, man, I can't lose you. Like, I just don't want to. I don't want to have to put you down. And I didn't have control over it. I had to leave it up to the vets. I had to leave it up to these experts, these experts that spent time in college and spent time with experience with dogs. And I didn't want her to be hurt. And she's in the hospital, and they're putting water under her skin because she was dehydrated. They're putting, they injected her with a few different types of medicine, anti-inflammatory medicine, a probiotic into her skin. She's getting blood work done, so she's probably putting needles in her. X-rays, so they're probably strapping her down to her table to give her X-rays. They're probably cleaning her, and it's just all these things that if I was a dog or if I was a person and someone dropped me off, and especially if I was a dog and I grew up in a pound, and I was dropped off at a place that looked like a pound and they left me, I would be scared shitless. And I was putting myself in her position, and it made me sad. I felt terrible for her. And we both did. Taylor and I both did. And 2 nights ago, we took her to the vet because she was just shitting out diarrhea and blood. So we took her to the vet. I guess this was Sunday at like 7:00. And we left. So basically what happened is they gave us antibiotics, which is kind of something we wanted from the beginning, but they gave us antibiotics. I think they did blood work. They gave us a probiotic, and for the last 2 days, she's been eating again. She's been drinking a lot of water because she's dehydrated from the medication. She seems pain-free. She's still like struggling to itch the back of her ear. But her personality's back, and she seems like she's Riley again. And this morning she actually went diarrhea. And it wasn't bloody. It was just, it was liquidy, but she pooped, and it sounds silly, but it made me feel so good inside because she seems like she's okay now. And it's growth for me as a person. It's growth for Taylor, and it's growth for us as a person because her and I together have been able to help this dog. And the one thing that did happen, which I was kind of concerned about because I'm a very introspective person, I'm always very aware of my emotions and how my life and the events throughout my day are affecting me, and not just me, but the people around me. especially the people around me. I don't always get it right, though. Obviously, who does? If we always did get it right, we would never had arguments. But it was like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of last week. The same week where I didn't upload a podcast on Thursday. I had to wait till Friday. I was having nightmares. I never really dream. I think I do dream, but I don't ever have the ability to recall the dreams. Sometimes throughout the day, something will happen, and I'll be like, shit, I remember that. And I offer it up to a dream. But at a surface level, I can't tell you what I dreamed about. Maybe 1 out of 50 nights I could tell you, but usually it just doesn't exist for me. And I don't know if it has something to do with my sleeping patterns. I don't know if it's about the chemicals in my body. It could be deep sleep. Maybe I just don't sleep long enough. I'm not too sure, but because I know people do dream, and I know if you hooked up an EKG to my brain or to my head, you would see that I am dreaming. Taylor says sometimes I'm like talking in my sleep and I'm moving in my sleep. So I do dream. I can't go back and grab. 1 second. Oh, that's fine. I can't go back and grab what I was dreaming of and repeat it verbally. But there was a 4-night period there where I was having nightmares, which is already... Actually, that's not too strange, because when I do dream, they are nightmares, which kind of sucks. But they're usually not like evil nightmares. They're usually just like, nightmares of I keep on biting my finger so much, I bite my finger off. Or, the classic when I fall off the side of a waterfall in my boat. Or you take a roller coaster and you make it to the top, and as you go down, the track is gone. Just dreams like that, or your teeth fall out. So stress dreams usually it just happens around school, which is something that I've total control over. I could just not procrastinate, and then I wouldn't have those issues. So I guess I do have dreams, just depends on what my life is like at a certain time. That affects what my dreams are. But there was a 4-day period here where I was having straight up nightmares. Not like anything like roller coasters or waterfalls. But nightmares that were so bad that they were affecting my days. Like, not like up to the point where I couldn't move, but up to the point where I couldn't delineate between what I was seeing, my reality, versus my dream state reality. Like, they were having probably at a physiological level, there probably was an effect on my blood pressure and my heart rate. And I think a lot of it had to do with just the fear, the lack of control I had over my dog. And it sounds so silly. And I don't know if it is, though, because when you lose a dog, it's the worst. Like, you lose someone really close to you. You can at least think of one time where they were an absolute dick to you. Where like maybe you still have you haven't accepted an apology. And you could be like, fuck, why do they do that shit? Even though they were a great person, you can at least almost like take care of the death by saying, well, they were a dick at this point. You can kind of give them a check mark or give them a bad grade on something. But dogs, you just can't do that. Like, you can't give a dog a bad grade. They're always happy. They always care for you. They always want the best for you. They always come up and see you after work or after workout or whatever. They always want to be right next to you. Right? So it's really hard when your dog's sick and you have no control. And that's what my dreams were. My dreams were, I was standing somewhere, nothing wrapped around my arms, nothing. And this is graphic. So if you guys don't want to listen to this next part, thank you for listening to the podcast, and I'll catch you guys in episode 110, because this is a little graphic, and I don't want to transfer my nightmares to you. That would make me sad as a person. But But for people who are intrigued, continue to listen. But it does get a little weird. So I was having these dreams where I was naked. You know people that say naked. It's like, hey man, no, it's naked. Or like I was watching Friends. Supposedly, it's like supposedly. I've always said supposedly, not supposedly. Supposedly, Baltimore, Annapolis, Annapolis. I'm just kidding. But I was standing. I think it was my bedroom. I'm not really too sure where it was, but I didn't have anything wrapped around me. So I could have moved, but I was paralyzed. I like Jesus on the cross. I just couldn't move, except my hands were closer. My hands were at like a 45-degree angle between my feet and parallel with the ground. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Not going to cut that out. So we keep it super, super real here on this podcast, all right? But I was like parallel to the ground. And I couldn't move my body. And right in front of me, there was full-grown humans. There was adults. There was kids, especially. And there was even toddlers. And what they were doing, they were throwing chains up across a pole that was connected to nothing. It was just a pole that the sky was above me. So I was in a room. There's a sky in front of me, kind of like a set in Hollywood. And there was a pole that was just, you look to your left, you look to your right. It wasn't connected to anything. It was just there floating. And there was chains with like long chains, kind of like chain gangs. And instead of having, big lead balls connected to them, there was handcuffs. And they were throwing these chains over top of this pole. And these kids, these babies especially, the adults weren't killing themselves. The adults were there watching these babies kill themselves. And what they were doing is they weren't stopping these babies from committing suicide. These babies were going up on the chains, tying their feet around the chains, throwing themselves overboard, and then cutting their necks and removing their heads. And then there'd be an upside down baby just dead. And I was having these dreams for 4 nights in a row, and they were brutal. And it was always a type of dream like that. They were different though. There was a spectrum of them. And they were fucking with me, right? They were definitely something that I would bring up to a therapist, like if I was in therapy right now, which I'm not, which I should probably get into. And I don't really know why I told you guys that. I think it's interesting to be aware of everything that goes on. Dreams kind of fall into like that holistic bullshit crystal ball world, and I don't think they are. I've read some books on dreams and how, I think Sigmund Freud since he is a father of psychoanalysis, and he's also was big into dreams, and he also was, I guess you could say, not the most legit scientist of all time, or legit researchers of all time, because a lot of his discoveries were clouded by insanity, like a lot of his psychoanalysis was with sex, young boys disliking their dad because their dad has sex with the moms, like, shit like that, like doorknobs were like attracting boys and stuff like that, sucking. It's just a lot of things, but he's kind of like the godfather of analyzing your dreams. And I think there is a lot of benefits to that. And I think the biggest benefit I could say from having those dreams was analyzing them. Because I could say I was just having nightmares, and say that they were just nightmares. It was stupid. There's no reason to have nightmares. Or I could do what I did. Look at the nightmares. Then look at my life that was taking place around these nightmares. And then by doing that, understanding where I was in that situation. And also giving myself a grade on how I handled the situation. Because I think I handled it well. I think we handled it well. But that's that. That was my nightmare. And I had, it was like 4 nights. I haven't really had it since. I wasn't eating well either. Could be that too. I was eating really late at night, and I know that really fucks up your chemicals, and because that's all dreams are. It's a rush of chemicals in your brain that formulate a picture. But I don't know. Besides that, it was a great week. I just want to finish off this podcast on one more note. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna save that for next podcast. I've been talking to a lot of people lately. I actually talked to 2 people recently about this. One thing that I think has really, really taken place during this lockdown, which I think is a beautiful thing, and I think it's something that a lot of people neglected, including myself for the longest time, is this idea of breathing, this idea of centering your body to take care of your mental and your emotional side of your being. A lot of people during this lockdown have struggled a lot with that. There's a serious pandemic going on, not just with COVID, but with people neglecting their emotional and mental states of mind. And I was talking to this gentleman, and he was explaining to me about the anatomy and the physiology of breathing. And it's so true. When you really focus on your breath and you really focus on your mindful of how you're breathing, of your environment that's going on around you, you can get through your day just as fast, but it feels slower. And it brings down everything. It brings down your heart rate. It brings down your hypertensity. I don't know if that's a word. But I've been implementing it for like the past week or 2 whenever I can. I mean, Joe Rogan had that dude on his podcast where he talked about breath, which is obviously why I think it's going around everywhere, because I've heard 2 other people talk about it, and if I didn't listen to that podcast, I wouldn't think it would be a thing. But I did listen to the podcast. But breathing through my nose, being aware of it, expanding my lungs and getting more oxygen to my blood and more blood rushing through my veins, cleaning out my blood veins, my veins. And it's been a very healing past 2 weeks. And the only reason why it's been healing is because it wasn't good for a little bit. And right, that's the dichotomy of everything. The only way to really feel success, the only way to really feel good about anything is you have to like really just go through the shit. And I didn't really go through that much, but I went through enough to, there's a slight earthquake, and I feel like I'm getting back on top of the rock. But shout out to everybody who I know personally. I look on Instagram all the time. I have so many friends I went to high school with that are buying houses, getting married, doing some real shit. I'm so proud of all those people. I mean, I don't want to name drop, but I'm so proud of all of my friends doing super well. I mean, every single one of them. You guys are, girls and guys are killing it. I think it's wonderful. One of my closest friends is doing super well. He's got a beautiful job. He's got a beautiful girlfriend. He's got a beautiful life right now. He seems like he's really happy. And I think in times like this, when there's so much bullshit going on, if you can see any positivity going on around you, I think instead of focusing so much on the negativity, which is so easy to do right now, it's so easy to find bullshit going on because there's bullshit everywhere you look. Focus on the positives. Focus on the things that bring you the most joy. And focus on yourself. Because that's the one thing that you will always have is yourself. You know, that's my crystal ball speech for today. But I don't know. I love this platform I built. I love this little community I have. And I love getting up here, sitting in the corner of my bedroom right next to my closet and spitting bars for two times a week for 90 minutes, 45-minute sessions. You guys show me support. I continue to bring the content. I've been getting a lot of responses on the quality of my audio. You guys know I was kind of embarrassed with the previous audio, so I did upgrade. I'm looking to add somebody to my podcast team in the marketing world on getting my podcast out there, on helping my SEO, which is like search something. Like, I don't even know. But if you guys know anybody who does any type of marketing for the podcast world, please reach out to me, and we could talk, because I do want to continuously grow this thing. And I know it's exponential growth, and it has been growing, but I feel like I'm not giving it as much time as I could, because I'm not that knowledgeable in that marketing world on podcasting. I think I can market other ways, but the podcasting, especially on YouTube, it can be difficult. So if you know anybody, or if you are somebody, please reach out to me. I would love to work with you. Just hit me up in the DM, email me at michaellabsr@gmail.com, or just drop it in the comment section below. But I love you guys. I'll catch you guys in episode 110. Peace out. See ya. Have a great and safe, corona-free weekend.